Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Naranam Namaskrityam Navam Shivanam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jamudayat Nastvasyam Bhatteshu Nityam Bhakta Sevaya Bhagavate Tamasloke Bhakti Bhavanaistike. Yeah, reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, chapter 79, text 13. Tam punah naimisham bhaktam. Tam punah naimisham bhaktam. Vishayo chayayam muda. Gat fangam katabishakah. Nifetakila visham. Tam punarnaimisham bhaktam. Vishayo chayayam mudam. Katvangam katubhishavah. Nifitakila visham. Tam punarnaimisham bhaktam. Vishayo chayayam mudam. Katvangam katubhishavah. Nifitakila visham. Punarnaimisham bhaktam. Vishayo chayayam mudam. Katvangam katubhishavah. Nifitakila visham. Tam punarnaimisham bhaktam. Vishayo chayayam mudam. Katvangam katubhishavah. Nifitakila visham. Mataji speaks. Tam punarnaimisham bhaktam. Vishayo chayayam mudam. Katvangam katubhishavah. Nifitakila visham. Tam punarnaimisham bhaktam. Vishayo chayayam mudam. Katvangam katubhishavah. Nifitakila visham. But for translation, Tam, him, Lord Balaram, Punaha, again, Naimisham, Apnaimisharanya, Praptam arrived. Risaya, the sages. Ajayam engaged in performing Vedic sacrifices. Muda, with pleasure. Kratu, of all sacrifices. Angam, the embodiment. Kratubihi, with ritualistic performances. Survive all varieties. Nivritta, word renounced. Akila, all. Vigram, warfare. Translation. Later, Lord Balaram returned to Naimisaranya, where the sages joyfully engaged him, the embodiment of all sacrifices, in performing various kinds of Vedic sacrifice. Lord Balaram was now retired from warfare. Purport. Actually, this is a purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada writes, when Lord Balaram went to the holy place of pilgrimage at Naimisaranya, the sages, saintly persons, all Brahmins, all stood up to receive him. They understood that Lord Balaram, although a Kshatriya, was now retired from the fighting business. The Brahmins and the sages, who were always for peace and tranquility, were very pleased at this. All of them embraced Balaram with great affection and induced him to perform various kinds of sacrifices in the sacred spot of Naimisaranya. Actually, Lord Balaram had no business performing the sacrifices recommended for ordinary human beings. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he himself is the enjoyer of all such sacrifices. As such, his exemplary action in performing sacrifices was only to give a lesson to the common man, to show how one should abide by the injunctions of the Vedas. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has just one line commentary on this verse. He says the sages engaged Balaram, the embodiment of all sacrifices, Katvangam, in performing sacrifices. But Jiva Goswami, he writes, through his pilgrimage was though his pilgrimage was completed, he went to Naimisaranya with a desire to perform sacrifice. He went there with wealth suitable for sacrifice, praptam, in the best manner with materials and with his associates. He went without delay, tada. Another version has muda, enjoy. One of his portions was sacrifice, katvangam, or he embodied all parts of sacrifice, or by chanting his name, all parts of sacrifice were completed. The sages engaged him in sacrifice. At the time, he was qualified because he had given up all fighting. Vihaha means fighting according to Vishva. Read the verse once again. Tam punar naimisam praptam esyo chayayan muda katvangam katabi sarver nifrita kila visham. Later, Lord Balaram returned to Naimisaranya, where the sages joyfully engaged him, the embodiment of all sacrifice, in performing various sacrifices in performing various kinds of Vedic sacrifices. Lord Balaram was now retired from warfare. Om Jnanatimanasya Chinanjana Shalakinam Sakshan Militam Yena Tasmai Shigore Namah. Chaitanyamanovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutane Svamrupakadamyam Dadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shio Shioda Padakamalam Shivam Vaishnavam Sham. Shirupam Jagajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Satsvetam Savadutam Parsana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shivshakam Vitam Sham. He Krishna Guna Sindhu Dino Bandhu Jatpate Gopesha Gopakanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kansana Kaurage Radhe Vrindavanashku Vishavani Sutta Devi Padmama Hari Priye Vanka Kalpta Vishakhe Pasana Vivsha Patnam Bhavangyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Om Bhaktavina Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishnu Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Srinyavadi Paskachani Desatani Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Lord Balaram is Krishna's first expansion. That acharyas say that all living entities in the material world, they are coming from Mahavishnu. All the living entities in the spiritual world, they come from Balaram. Interesting. That we see here in this chapter, Lord Balaram is going on pilgrimage, and he visited so many places are described, up to Situ Bandhu, Rameshwar in the south. But one place is not mentioned. It's Jagannath Puri. It does not come to Jagannath Puri. Why is that? He wanted to avoid to worship himself, because he's on the altar there, the Balaram. But yes, we know in this chapter, a few verses before, he wanted to stop the fight between Bhima and Duryodhana. That he told them that, look, Bhima is stronger than Duryodhana, but Duryodhana is more expert in the art of fighting with the club. So you are equal. It's useless, this fight. Give up your enmity. Forgive each other. That was, he wanted to give a forgiveness seminar, but they didn't listen. While fighting, they were remembering how they have hurt each other in so many occasions in the past time. That, of course, Bhima, it's not that Bhima was the representation of pure goodness in his youth. He was very strong. He was a voracious eater, and He had the strength of 10,000 elephants. And he used to play in his youth with the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. Of course, Duryodhana was the eldest. And sometimes the sons of Dhritarashtra, they would climb in trees, and then Bhima would move the tree, and they would fall from the tree, breaking their arms and so. It was not. So from the beginning, they were not very much attracted to each other. Of course, we have then Duryodhana. They wanted to get rid of Bhima, and they knew he was a voracious eater. So one day they made him a very nice cake, but it was full of hala poison from the cobra. But yeah, Bhima he ate it with great pleasure. But then after eating it, he said, "I feel a little sleepy." And Duryodhana said, "No problem, you take it." But then from the moment he fell unconscious, they bound him with ropes and threw him in the river. In the river, his body was sinking to the bottom. And at the bottom, there were poisonous snakes. And they started to bite him. But the poison of the snakes was counteracting the poison from the cake in the blood. And he became conscious, and that poison gave him strength, and he broke the ropes, and then he was invited by the servants of Varuna. Of course, Bhima was the son of Vayu. So he was quite elevated demigod. Of course, Bhima was the brother of. They met later. Bhima met Hanuman. Hanuman is also a son of Vayu, so they were brothers. But anyway, the Varuna gave him different kinds of elixir which increased his strength. And then he came out of the water after a few days later. And yeah, anyway, so many things happened between Duryodhana and Bhima. Bhima had vowed to kill the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, especially when after they offended Draupadi. He killed them all. Of course, Duryodhana remembered that. So they were fighting, and they could not stop fighting, just because of enmity between both. Because also, yes, when they tried to destroy Draupadi, because Draupadi was lost in the gambling, so they were thinking it's our slave now, the Kurus were thinking. And Duryodhana said, "You should come and sit on my thigh." And then Bhima, he made the vow, I will break that tie. And that will happen in that fight. But anyway, Lord Balaram was so disgusted because because Bhima was going to hit him on his thigh, which is not for, but which is technically forbidden in a fight with a club. Not under the waist. You cannot hit someone under the waist. But he hit him and broke his thigh. Then Balaram was running towards Bhima to punish him, but Lord Krishna stopped him and said, remember what all these crows did to the Pandavas. You cannot do that, Krishna said. And Balaram decided to go on pilgrimage. But one interesting thing is here you have, so Duryodhana saw Krishna as his enemy. But he saw himself as a disciple of Balaram, in the sense that Balaram taught him how to fight with the club. So they are all both the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead loves everyone. So that balanced the situation. He saw Krishna as his enemy, and then Balaram, who is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the friend. That yesterday I read Bhagavad Gita, and every day I read one chapter, verses, translation, and I read one purport, and this was verse 1155, the last verse of the 11th chapter. And there it gives 5 things we should do to progress. And one of these 5 things is interesting. We should become the friends. We should be friendly to all living entities. But if you see someone as your enemy and you think he's here and you feel hurt for this, that, and that, then that feeling of hurt that make you think of that person. You chant japa and that feeling of hurt comes up. And it takes you away from your attention to Krishna. It takes you away because it's aversion. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 3:34, there are 2 paripantina. There are 2 obstacles of the path of devotion, that is attachment and aversion, raga, dvesha. It's both attachment. The one is positive, the other is negative, but it are both obstacles, that this attachment and aversion. So therefore, Balaram told them, forgive each other, but they could not. They felt too much hurt, because they saw the other as the enemy. It's like Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, where they appeared three times, Jai and Vijay, but this is the first time. And they were fixed in enmity of the Supreme Lord. And they were so much fixed in that enmity, in this hate, that they always were thinking of Krishna. That, of course, this is not devotional service. Devotional service, Shilanam, Anushilanam, it should be favorably to please Krishna. That it's to please Krishna. But they were so fixed. But I was thinking, when I read this about Bhima and Duryodhana, I was writing about this on, this is for my seminar on the chanting of the holy name, about forgiveness. How forgiveness is related to the chanting of the holy name. It has to do with this duality. It makes us dwell in the duality of hate, desire and hate. And by that, it takes us away from the holy name. What's the importance of forgive? Before I was a practicing Christian, and I was always thinking this forgiveness in Christianity. It's a big point for a Christian, forgiveness. I have two quotations from the Bible. First is, for if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. Another quotation from the Bible about forgiveness. And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive your sins. What does it mean? That forgiveness is presented here as a necessary step for spiritual connection and reconciliation with God. So Krishna says in 1155, you have to become friendly to all living entities. My Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Charamaj, he said that many times. Don't look back, look for the future. Your future is great. Forget the past. Let it go. Just let go of all what happened in the past. Let it go. Because we may chant without the 10 offenses. Nice. But if we don't forgive, still your japa will not be with concentration. This is the importance of forgiveness. That's because this is the illusory energy. We become absorbed in this duality of desire and hate. Dualities means honor, dishonor, misery, happiness, woman, man, good, bad, pleasure, pain. This is my wife, this is my house. I'm the master of this house. I'm the husband of this wife. These are dualities of delusion. So this comes from false ego. The fact we cannot forgive means we have a strong false ego. False ego, Prabhupada writes, is exhibited under the impression that I'm a product of material nature. That's false ego. False ego means accepting this body as oneself. And because the body means, if you are in body consciousness, you are in the duality, good or bad. If you are dwelling in this good or bad, we can understand it's false ego. That is going together. False ego means accepting the body as oneself. But when one understands one is not a body, is a spirit soul, we come grounded to real ego. Ego is there. False ego is condemned, but not real ego. I'm just reading from purpose of Prabhupada, who speaks about false ego in the Bhagavad Gita. That it says the person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently. That is a symptom of nescience. It does not know that his gross and subtle body is the creation of material nature, under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as such, his bodily mental activities should be engaged in Krishna consciousness. That's real ego. A person acting in the false ego is vividly described in Srimad Bhagavatam. That's this famous verse from the 10th canto. A human being who identifies his body made of three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsman, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to places of pilgrimage, is to simply take a bath rather than to meet men of transcendental knowledge, is to be considered an ass or cow. So what does it require to come to real ego? It requires sambandha, knowing who we are. No, and that requires knowing who Krishna is, who we are, and what our relationship is. And also accepting a lifestyle on acting as a spirit soul. This means we need to surrender all what we do to Krishna. That acting for Krishna without desire for profit or claiming proprietorship. In 330 Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains how to act as a spirit soul. He says that, yes, that one must act the knowing that he's not a proprietor of everything and not the enjoyer, it's Krishna. That, when we become free from this body concept of life, we become peaceful, not agitated. Yes, we have Jai and Vijay. They were cursed by the four Kumaras, and they became deeply perturbed. But Lord Narayan advised them, you act as enemies, promising that they would return after 3 births. And they appeared as Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakasipu, Ravan, Kumbhakarna, Sisupal, Dantavraka. That in each of these incarnations, they were driven by hate and anger, and their mind was fixed on the Supreme Lord. So this hate, if we don't forgive, we have this hate still in our heart. And that fuels a fixation of the mind on the enemy. If we don't forgive, that remains in our heart. And the issue will resurface, will come again, repeatedly. It will come back. It comes back again and again, again. During japa, and it obstructs our ability to focus on the holy name. Because if we can't give attention to the holy name, well, I was traveling with Prahlad Maharaj. He taught me how to preach, and one thing he said repeatedly to me, we first give our attention to Krishna. When you can give your attention, then you can give your love. So first attention comes first. And it takes away our attention, this raga, dvesha, aversion, so therefore we want to go back to the spiritual world. It's our real home, that the residents of the Goloka Vrindavan, this is our real family, and they are waiting for us to come. So why stay here and keep that hate in our heart? No. Open your path to the spiritual world and forgive. Let it go. It's all temporary. We went to so many lifetimes and we had so many issues. And because if we keep that hate, these things accrue until after death. So it's in our self-interest to forgive that and that. Even for something which is 50, 60 years ago, for those who are a little older. I have things in my heart of 50 years ago. People are already dead, but still you feel the enmity and the anger and the hate. No, let it go. Let it go. If we let it go, then we can chant with attention. And then we can give our path. So why remain in the material world for such a thing? That a devotee understands everything what happens to us is a reaction to our own past misdeeds. So if someone has done something to us, it means we have done the same thing to others. That's all. And the person brings the reaction. That person brings the reaction. Of course, if the person is an abuser and so on, that has to be stopped also. It's not that we say, oh, it's just my reaction. That's another point. That's another aspect. But we have to forgive that. And it's very important between relationships between devotees. Prabhupada, well, in the Bhagavad Gita, there are two places where forgiveness is mentioned. I think in 10.3, Krishna gives a list of different qualities, and he said, I created these qualities. Forgiveness is one of them. But also, so forgiveness in Sanskrit is ksama. Ksama is also mentioned in chapter 16, verses 1 to 3, which describes the divine qualities. Ksama. Ksama, Prabhupada in the Prabhupada said, one should learn to forgive the minor offenses of others. And that is a divine quality, this forgiveness. This forgiveness, why can't we forgive? Is this false ego, that identifying with what we are not. And of course, it's not just that one saying, I forgive. That one must feel that also in one's heart. It's not just by saying, I forgive. Sometimes devotees go to therapist or whatever, but sometimes it increases the problem instead of helping, because because it reminds you to all what happens, then it becomes worse. That, but no, the deepest causes are this false ego. The deepest causes is this attachment and aversion because of the body concept of life. But this body concept of life is also only concerned with very temporary situations. That if I think 50 years ago, this person did that to me, but the person is already years dead. It's gone. Let it go. That's because this, if we don't do that, we are not compassionate, especially not compassionate with ourselves, because we have to remain in this world because we can't chant properly, because this is coming up all the time. That we can pray to Lord Krishna to help us that this attachment to things in this world, it's a dangerous illusory energy that and unless we understand how dangerous it is, we cannot develop real compassion. That so yes, therefore, Lord Prahlad praise the Lord Nrsimhadev. Namaste Nrsimhaya, Namaste Ase. Bhavan Vachanam Kavachanam Kamashanam Daryatam Ugasam Abhayam Atmani Bhuyam. Something like that. Translation is, my dear Lord, O Supreme Great Prahlad Maharaj said, you have created this material world, but you are transcendental to the material qualities. That he says, what? So he says to Lord Nrsimhadev, that's the next verse. He says, you have these sharp nails. Go with the sharp nails into my heart and take all the dirt away of. Remove it from my heart. Do it now. That praying to the Supreme Lord, take all his attachment away. That Prabhupada in the purport of that verse says, devotees should like to pray like this. They should learn to pray like this. That it requires courage to pray to Krishna. Take now my attachment away. That because we are so attached to things, we don't want to give up. Because our attachments are also kind of prayers, a desire that, and it's due to anarthas. There are 4 kinds of anarthas. That I don't sure I remember them, but you have either rebellion, weakness of heart, that too much attached to things in this world. Asattrishnan, attachment to dead things and trying to enjoy them in this world. So these are, of course, there are also anarthas that comes from previous pious activities and previous impious activities and so on. That's all analyzed by our acharyas. But praying to Krishna, take it away. I remember it was a senior Mataji, Prabhupada disciple. She was in Vrindavan, and she prayed to the Lord. please take everything away what's hindering us, what's between us. Take it away that I can have a pure relationship. When she came home, she got the news that her husband had another relationship. Anyway, Krishna took away her attachment. But it was not in the way that like sometimes we have a romantic idea that Krishna will purify in that way or this way. But Krishna is his way to purify us. But it requires courage, because we may not be able on our own strength to really come to that point of forgiveness. You can say, I forgive, and you can say it every day, but in your heart you keep a grudge. And to take that away, Krishna purifies the heart. But it is not worthwhile to keep this attachment in our heart. No, it keeps us in this material world. It's a sign of self-compassion to learn how to forgive. And that is what Balaram wanted to teach Bhima and Duryodhana. But he was not successful. But of course, these are Krishna's pastimes. Practically, Duryodhana, Bhima, and so on are pure devotees. But they are performing a drama to teach us because when Krishna leaves the planet, then this is, and all the others have destroyed each other, and this Jara, this hunter, he points his arrow to Krishna and he's shooting the arrow in his feet, and Krishna leaves. Of course, Krishna is everything. Krishna cannot leave. He can be out of our sight, but Krishna is always there. But he's leaving. What was I going to say? What did I say before? Another point that I made is when at that moment, Bhujan Prabhu told us in the Bhaktivedanta course when Krishna left, that he said, Krishna's pastimes are like a road show. And when the show is over, all the personalities, the actors, they take off their costumes. And then they talk as friends. So this and Duryodhana he has to play the bad role, of the bad person, and the Pandavas are the nice persons. But it's all a show. That's what it is. And they go to the next universe to perform the show again. Yes. So it's to teach us. So we should not say here that or see faults in Bhima. No. It's just Krishna's way of teaching us through his devotees. But it are great lessons for us. So this is forgiveness. But here we see then in this verse, the sages joyfully engaged Balaram, the embodiment of all sacrifices, in performing various kinds of Vedic sacrifices. So this is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna says, if I would not do my duty, then the whole world would be put in ruination. So he's teaching by example, and Lord Balaram is original spiritual master, and yes, he's representing this Asyuta Bala. Asyuta Bala means spiritual strength. Balaram gives us the spiritual strength that we need. And so if we want to forgive, we need spiritual strength, spiritual maturity. And Balaram can give it to us. That us, with the spiritual master gives us the Vedas, the instructions that and Balaram gives us the spiritual strength. How, in other words, that we get the sword to cut this attachment in this world from the spiritual master. And by following his instructions, we sharp it. And then by the mercy of Balaram, we get spiritual strength to use it. And this is somewhere in the Bhagavatam. I don't remember exact where, but it's called Asyuta Bala, spiritual strength. So Lord Balaram is original spiritual master, and the Vedas are the instructions of the Supreme Lord. And he's showing by example how to perform these instructions. So in the Vedas, householders are used to perform the daily Agni Hotra sacrifice. That, of course, in this age, it doesn't work. Nobody's qualified to do this Agni Hotra sacrifices. Therefore, the Jagya for this age is brought to us by Lord Chaitanya in the form of the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But he came to Namisaranya and they requested him to do these sacrifices. Of course, Balaram is Bhaktaram Charitaprasam, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the object of all, or the beneficiary of all these sacrifices. So he doesn't need to do any sacrifice. It's meant to please him. But he's doing it. He plays the role of a human being and is giving the example how important it is to do sacrifice. Because Jachnarta Karmanuyatra Lokyam Karmavanada. Krishna says one must perform sacrifice to please Lord Vishnu. And then you will become purified, you become free from your karma and so on. That's he was an example in this regard. That were other great devotees who were also examples in that regard. Kardama Muni, he did also Kardama Muni, he followed the Vedic instructions very nicely, to the point that when he got the Supreme Lord as his son, that Lord Kapila, it was time for him to take Vanaprastha, and he left. That, but because he was so absorbed in the Supreme Lord, he remained absorbed in the Supreme Lord, thinking of him in his heart. So he was not really separated from him. But yes, that is what we see in the Bhagavatam. We must do our sacrifices. But interesting is different personalities are doing that in different ways. That this sacrifice. That Swambhuva Manu, he was always hearing about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. He was performing dramas. He engaged always in performing dramas and elaborate deity worship. That he was getting up in the morning and he was woken up by servants reading about Krishna's pastimes, always absorbed. That Kardama Muni was different. He was doing the yogic meditation, was a mystic yogi. And he attained perfection in that way. And yes. So there are different ways Krishna engages us according to our nature. But we must perform sacrifice. In the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it said, sacrifice, penance, austerities, that charity should never be given up. And he gives the example here, Lord Balaram, because he's the original spiritual master. That he had no business performing these sacrifices because they are meant for us. But he comes to give the example that is what I could say. This person, Balaram's pastimes in this chapter for the glories of Lord Balarama Unlimited. Any question or comment?
In this world, there are a lot of cruelties. In the past, there was Kshatriyas, but like now in Bangladesh, there's a lot of cruelties. Temples are destroyed, devotees are killed. How can we handle this? Only by praying?
Yeah, what can we do? That terrible wars are going in this world.
Also with devotees and temples.
That, of course, I know the ISKCON Ministry of Communications tries through communications to sensibilize many others. But we have to be very careful that, because I remember that in the 80s, 90s, beginning of the 90s, I think, still in Russia. Well, end of the 80s, I think. Some of our devotees in Russia were put in psychiatric institutions. There were some of them died there, very terrible. That and then the leadership in ISKCON was thinking that was protest about before the embassies. That was the idea, but finally they decided not to do that, because by doing that, more they would torture more of our devotees, and it will have an adverse effect. So we have to be very careful in how to handle this. But Krishna is a supreme controller, and we can pray to him and see what happens. But sometimes we may not understand Krishna's plan. But Krishna protects his devotees, but does not mean we don't get our karma. That's another thing. It is by performing devotional service, 4 kinds of karma come. Kuta, Picha, Parabdha, Aparabdha. It's all gone. But not all. It's like it's like a ventilator, a fan. I put out, Prabhupada explains, you put out the electricity, disconnect it, but it starts going for some time. So this body, it's made of karma. It's all your karma is gone, you are not there anymore. It is karma, and it has to go to this end. But the devotee who has attained perfection will not get another body. But you have to get your reactions. It's not that it's a mistake to think I'm going to become Krishna conscious and I'm going to get rid of suffering. Yes, you are going to get rid of suffering, of the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. But this body has to go to his end. And Krishna wants his devotees to be responsible. You have done this in the past and you get a reaction. And for a devotee, that's nice. That's fine. Dat in een kampanje mixen pujat mij vaat met het amvipakam het vaak probeer we dat allemaal steeds je weet joh. Die wat is eigenlijk. That's a verse of Brahma. Yeah. Maar Brahma who says, yeah, a devotee knows my suffering is due to my past misdeeds. And Krishna gives me only a little. So that's how the devotee thinks. But it has to come. And it's not that I'm becoming a devotee, my life will be all rose in Sharanamrita. No, it will not be like that. It will not be like that. No, you have to get your reactions. And many devotees here and in Bangladesh, they may have done horrendous things in their previous life. And they may have to be killed in this. But we see only the moment. And we think, oh, why is Krishna not doing something? But Krishna sees the whole picture. And what he does is always, what he does is always for our good. But we are in the body concept of life. We think, oh, why is Krishna not intervening? What is ISKCON going to do? But what can ISKCON do against these laws of nature? We can only pray to Krishna. And Krishna can change things. But it's up to him that soon as Krishna desires, that was my little comment for what it's worthwhile.
Thank you, Maharaj.
This topic, it's a nice topic. Prabhupada says in many purports that while preaching this Krishna consciousness movement, we should expect a lot of aversion and some counterattacks by the material energy, because that's the job of the material energy is to keep everybody in Maya. So that's why that's related to tolerance, we discussed, and forgiveness. That's the devotees who preach. I mean, mentions Haridas Thakur, he preached, he didn't harm anyone, but they beat him up like anything. Jesus Christ, the only mistake he made was that he would share the words of God. After that, he was nailed on the cross. So that Prabhupada said this, we have to become more humble than a tree, than a grass, more taller than a tree, related to our preaching.
Yeah, and that was reminding me of Jesus was on the cross, and there were two criminals also on the cross. One was blaspheming Jesus, and the other asked for forgiveness, please. Please forgive. I was indeed a criminal, and he asked forgiveness, and Jesus said to him, I tell you, today you will be with my Father in heaven. So that opens the door for heaven. So in that sense, I always remember that also, that because in the beginning I was thinking, as a Christian, forgiveness, how is that in the Krishna conscious movement? But it is related to our japa, our chanting. If we want to improve our chanting and connect with Krishna, with feeling, just forgive. It's our old temporary things. Don't stay in this world because of that. Just let it go. That at least we should try our best. Good. Thank you very much. Yeah, listen, you want to say something? Yeah.
Strong that always said that false ego that sees enemies and friends. I mean, even just relating to little things that you get annoyed by, and it's just because you think you are worth something, and that related to the body. But if we are humble like a spirit soul that is very small, then things shouldn't bother us so much. Yes. Really, that's the false ego that's hurt, basically, because we think we're something, and how dare somebody hurt or another. So
it's the mind that is entangled.
Not seeing the relationship with Krishna.
Yeah, that is the basis of false ego. False ego, Lord Brahma says, there are five aspects of false ego. You get false ego from the moment you forget Krishna. That's the cause. When we forget Krishna, we identify us not as a servant of Krishna, but with something else. We start to identify with the body. And that is, and the first is tamas, or ignorance. We forget Krishna. And that is moha. And then moha expands. We think this is mine for the enjoyment, for my enjoyment. But matter cannot give enjoyment to the body, to the soul. It's for the body. Maha moya. But then you want to enjoy and it doesn't happen. Suffering comes, the next illusion. And then finally, when we die, we think, I'm going to stop to exist. But the soul cannot die, and your consciousness cannot die. You can become unconscious of the external material world, but you remain conscious of your soul. It cannot be killed. And that's false ego. In other words, the more we hear about Krishna, the more we can solve this problem. That you are reading in the afternoon now the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita this evening. Please come, and that's curing. So don't think it's a big thing. Oh, I'm going to get rid of this or of this hate or what. Now come and hear. Then the byproduct will be, I can give it up. Yes.
Second, that the having to forgive somebody can also carry false ego. But I think that I'm right and they are wrong.
Yeah.
And also that we are in the position to feel hurt, but I'm forgiving. But there's so much false ego in this kind of statement. This is my understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That right and wrong is the duality of this world. We are absorbed in it. Yeah. But what is right? What is right is what pleases Krishna. That is right for the soul. We have to learn what's right and wrong for the soul, but we are absorbed in what's right and wrong for the body. What's right and wrong for the soul? Shri Upanishad, Upadeshamrita, text 2, it's what's wrong for the soul. And text 3 is what's good for the soul. So we have to be educated and learn that. Good. Thank you for your comment. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah.